Hello, comic book readers, and welcome to a live new episode of Off the Rack. I am Sal.
And I'm Tiffany.
We're going to be talking about a couple of comics, but I hesitate to say it's going to be a strictly comic book discussion today because, of course, Tiffany and myself saw Black Panther Wakanda Forever, aka Black Panther 2. And so we're going to talk a lot about that. But that's towards the end of the show. And of course, we still are going to recap and review and tell you what we thought about some comics that came out this week and recommend comics that are coming out this week that we think that you should pick up. So don't worry about that. That's still happening. But we won't be able to talk about all the books that that came out this past week. That's it.
Awesome.
Yeah, besides that, I should also mention this show is sponsored by viewers like you. If you're out there and you're watching the show live, you can sponsor today's show by using Super Chats. If you ask a question or comment, we will read it here on the show, and it will be part of the show forever. And, of course, if you like this show in audio format, you can always follow Off the Rack New Comics over on Spotify and all other places where podcasts are found. If you are a fan of Wake Up with Comic Pop, our new show, where I just talk at you for about 30 minutes or so on your way commuting to work, then you should check that show out as well. It's also available in video format here on this channel, ComicPop Returns, which if you didn't know about it, you can, of course, subscribe to this channel, click the bell for notifications, and you will know about it. You can also follow that show along on Spotify and I think Google. But Apple is like, no, we don't think this is a real podcast, so we're not going to approve it.
What?
Yep, Apple. That's how it goes. So we're gonna wait for that. But otherwise, you can catch the audio version same day on Spotify and Google.
Love it.
Yep.
That's it. That's all I've got.
Yep.
I
am disappointed. Yeah, I won't thank you. I like making it. I am disappointed because I would like to talk about Wildcats, but I didn't get a chance to read it. I was just really busy.
You were. I know you shot a lot of additional things today, not for this channel.
No, that's true. Yes, in fact, I've reduced my my work output on other things that are not Comic Pop because Comic Pop suffered a little bit as a result of my other ventures, and so that's something I don't want to see happen.
That's fair. So we'll get back to it.
Exactly. Back to Comic Pop.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we'll talk about a couple of books. I know that you read a couple. I read a couple. And just to kind of wet the palate before we get into Super Chats, I did read Ryan North and Iban Coelho's new debut for Fantastic Four.
Okay.
Fantastic Four #1.
There
this,
it is.
Of course, features some gorgeous cover art by Alex Ross and some fun interior art by Iban Coelho, who did a great job. No shade. But we just got off the heels of David Pepos doing a 2-parter for Fantastic Four. Also, we had Fantastic Four Full Circle, and now we have this brand new series that comes right off the heels of Dan Slott's celebrated run on the series. I don't know. Also, maybe I'm indicating we're going to be doing back issues this week that's on our Marvel's Fab 4. So keep an eye out for that.
What?
And if you ever want to see them back on that channel, make sure to watch it. But yeah. This was fine. It was fun. It was a cute little story. Alicia and Ben are, I don't know, on a road trip, and they stay at like a dingy roadside motel, and they get more than they bargained for. It's like they're caught in a kind of like time loop. So it's like a Star Trek episode.
Okay.
That's been going on since like 1947. And, it's a cute idea. And it still has all the basic hallmarks of your favorite The Thing stories, which is he's super self-conscious. He doesn't like being judged for his appearance.
Sure.
The new status quo of him being Alicia is still nice. And the art is it never takes it to a place where you're like, oh no, like this is really, really dour. It's just a celebration of these characters, or at the very least, Ben. Alicia doesn't have much to do, but she is fun when she is given something to do in the issue.
Okay.
An interesting start to a book that features 4 main protagonists to only feature one of the 4 protagonists and his wife. But yeah,
did the story kind of wrap itself up at the end, or is it going to?
Yeah, it pretty much did. I mean,
so maybe the first 4 issues are going to be little spotlight issues.
That'd be fine with me because I know that Slot really likes to like upset the apple cart. He thinks it's very like Marvel to have everyone hate each other and be mad.
Right.
And so of course his run ended with that, where people were just like so upset and angry with each other. And I'm like, boy, I love watching or reading a book about a family
Mm.
and a team that has to work together, be just miserable and angry with each other. So it's fine. But this is, I think it's going to be a bold new direction for this team. I genuinely hope that Ryan North has more Star Trekian ideas in store for our favors, our Marvel's first family.
Do you think that this type of thing happens to regular people in the Marvel universe? Like, do they go on vacation and end up in time loops, or is this just
I have to assume. I mean, it happens so damn often. But
right?
yeah, I know. No, I think it has to. It's a question I never asked myself, so I would never imagine.
Like, is your day to day as a normal citizen of the Marvel like 616 just,
Yeah, just oops,
chaotic?
I fell in an interdimensional hole, and I ended up being like the leader of the tree people for
Yeah.
a millennia. But every second there was or every year there was a second here, so I was
Yeah.
only gone for like half an hour. I don't
And
know.
I can't put that on my resume, but
No, I just well,
uh,
thankfully I wasn't gone very long. I learned a lot and I grew as
well,
a
yeah, but I'm
person.
just saying, like, that's a resume builder. But what are you gonna how are you gonna put that? Where's that go in the like special like interests or like special skills section?
Right? Like
Great
30 phlegm flark years. But
great
only about
leadership skills.
yeah, I do because I was a king for a
But
time.
you can't talk to anybody about it. They're not
The other
here.
thing is, of course, how do you prove that or how do
Yeah.
you disprove that? Because then you can just make it up. You can just be
Yeah.
like, "Oh yeah, no, that gap in my resume. I wasn't just getting high on my friend's couch for 6 months. I was a leader of an anthill, literally. I got hit by pin particles and I got shrunk. And then they just wore off.
So you can't disprove it or prove it. You can't ask anybody about it. So
Exactly.
give me the job.
Yeah. Give me the job. I'm sure that there's I'm sure there's a lot of unemployment lines that are choked with those stories. Brian Rowland says, I need Winston Duke's Man Ape to join the Thunderbolts or be in a show. He was great. ComicPop rules. I think he'll be busy
Yeah?
to do Thunderbolts. Like, I think his character will not be available for the Thunderbolts. He's
Really?
great. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, based on what we saw in the movie that he's in.
Oh yeah, sorry. I was thinking of something totally different.
Thank you, Brian. Jaron Smith says, love the show. Sad I missed you guys at New York Comic Con, but I will try again next time. What do you think of the Black Panther movies using death as a motivation each time? Also, Riri's suit looks like a weird Gundam. Love Comic Pop. Well, thank you very much, Jaron. And we're sorry we missed you too, man.
Yeah.
Definitely next time. So keep an eye out for that. Yeah, the Black Panther movies using death. I never thought about that, but it certainly is a factor. I don't think that the thing is with the second one, that one used real death to kind of like guide the plot, whereas the first one was a fictitious death.
Mhm.
So, but I like the theming. I guess because Black Panther is King of the Dead, that would be a cool way to tie it together.
Mhm.
But based on the intro to the Black Panther Wakanda Forever movie that we were confused during, and having re-watched it now, I can say that uh, they're playing with the Bast religion thing in a way
Yes.
where I'm like, oh, y- because we all know from the comics that Bast is real and
Yes.
will talk to you and
Yes.
pick you up in her paws and bite you. But in the Marvel universe, she doesn't get a fun kaiju fight in Egypt like at the end of Moon Knight. And so I guess she's just leaving it up to faith, despite the fact that if you eat a magic plant, you'll get imbued with superpowers, which should be enough, but maybe not. Um, yeah,
Well, we can get more into that experience that we had at the theater too to explain why there was confusion for us later.
absolutely. But yeah, but given that you know, they're playing it close to the chest as far as Bast's existence. I don't think they're going to go with like the whole King of the Dead route, which means that
Mm,
I don't think they're thinking about death as a motivator.
right.
Riv Wilson, this show pops. Well, thank you, Riv. Appreciate
Well,
it.
thank you
Thanks for
so
stopping
much.
in. MNM says, well, don't know if you've read the new Fantastic Four, but it's the weirdest issue. It feels like an in-between arc filler issue, not a kickoff for a brand new exciting run. Certainly not, but you already know that, my friend. Thank you for watching. Pedro Vengas, the new FF was really good and cute. Yeah, I'd say it was cute. It did something, it didn't blow the doors off, and it certainly didn't set up a new status quo. I feel like the Alex Ross book would have been a more appropriate run. Beginner. MNM says, also, if you don't like whatever they're doing with Beast lately, don't read the new Wolverine issue. He's straight up evil now. Brutally so.
He's been like that, honestly. I mean, I can imagine they've taken him further. I don't know what they're doing with this character, and I honestly don't. I mean, maybe they're all like daring each other to see how far they're gonna take Beast, and then someone's going to have to step up and be like, okay, how do we redeem this character? And I should like to see that. I should like to see how you think that you can do something to fix this.
Yeah, it's Beast. I think he's still been a hero longer than he's been evil, but it's probably a dead heat by this point. So I think certainly there are more comic book readers today who know Beast as a morally compromised monster than they do as a fun-loving, quip-making super genius who's been both a card-carrying member of the Avengers and a founding member of the X-Men.
Yeah.
Weird.
Very weird.
Yeah. But yeah, man. So Tiffany, did you read anything that you want to talk about before we get into the big, meaty, heavy stuff?
Yeah, I do want to at the very least, I feel like if I talk about one comic this week, it has to be Axe Judgment Day, the Omega issue, because I loved this event. And I know we always talk about Alpha and Omega issues, but I really like this Omega issue, honestly. It's written by Kieran Gillen with art by, don't know how to say their first name, but Villanova. Their art is, I think, an acquired taste for sure.
What are they doing with the cover?
I don't know.
It's blurry.
Is it?
Yeah.
No. Yes.
The text part, like the logo is.
No, it's glowy.
Glowy. Ah.
It's glowy. It's glowing.
But
this issue really was just like, hey, do you want to have Kieran Gillen give you kind of his period to his Eternals run from the get-go? This is that issue. It essentially sets up a potential new status quo, which I hope someone would do with, and I hope it would be Kieran Gillen, but I don't know if he's not just kind of putting the brakes on it for right now. Yeah, there's a great interview with him out there that really gets into his run, or at least of Judgment Day. So if you have a chance to go check that out, I've read a little bit of it.
Yeah.
Including things originally part of Judgment Day was actually an Immortal X-Men pitch. It wasn't this big.
Okay.
So then it ended with something else. But I think this is a solid ending. Just a little final moment, a chance for some characters who maybe didn't get a chance to, have some final conversations to do so. And I appreciated a lot of it. I actually feel the first panel of this issue, I was like, oh man, this is what people are missing by not reading Gillen's work, because the World Machine obviously is very different than it was at the get-go. Had the beginning of his Eternals run had a great personality, but now it's pretty cut and dry. Just here's the narration, here's what's going on, that kind of thing. But Makari is kind of chronicling this whole thing that just happened, Judgment Day, and we see her seemingly making images with light, and the World Machine describes it as doing this in the traditional way, the traditional High Eternal style. It's a form that merges images and words together in a perfect alloy. To Eternals, this makes it the highest of all art forms, though few cultures agree. And I love that. I love that so much. Just this little commentary on comics themselves. This is why I like Gillen so much. He's a writer for me for sure.
Exactly.
We get a little more, hey, this is what Icarus and some of the other Eternals are going to end up doing. Most of the main Eternals that who aren't dead, are kind of joining society as plainclothes heroes, where they're going out there to try to help people and pay back the debt that they owe in their own quiet ways. That is the heretics like Icarus and Fastos and Sprite going out there doing that. That's their whole
Yeah.
plan. Like seeing the Mimotar gets a little moment for themselves as well, which I really enjoyed. Obviously we have a new celestial eternal hybrid god
God, yes.
in Ajax Celestia. So, she's there. She's got her own plans. We get, confirmation that in fact, yes, the people of Araco have access to Uranus for 1 hour, which he's pretty
Mm,
excited about. He's like, yeah, but no, like it's not like that. Like you will be there at their will, people you hate. He's like, but I will be out.
right.
So he's like, so I'll just wait for that moment, which I assume the current like Krakoa mutant writers room has a plan to use that, but part of me hopes that that's just a smoking gun
Mm,
that Kieran like put on the wall for everybody, and it's like down the road if you ever want to, don't forget that that exists. And
right.
it would be kind of fun for all of us to have forgotten about it and then to have it show up and be like, "Oh, damn.
Yeah.
What?" I have a
Well,
feeling we're not going to wait that long.
no, these people seem to not be able to like keep their cool for more than a few seconds because, uh, yeah, because of what where we've gone and how
Mhm.
Fall of X is just on the heels, like it's just around the corner, and Fall of X suggests the death of Krakoa and the rise of the Westchester branch and the inevitable return of Apocalypse and his entire family. And, it's like Fall of X does not, I think, deserve to be the Apocalypse event that is
Mm.
inevitably coming.
Mhm.
That I would have rather had Hickman write instead of whoever the hell they strong arm into writing that won't be part of the Hickman plan.
Yeah.
But certainly, I would unleash Uranos on Apocalypse if he were to return with his family.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Instead, I bet it's in a tie-in where they'll fight one of his family members.
I hope not. But possibly.
Yeah.
We also get a moment in which Faustus goes to Krakoa with a gift, and like Wolverine's like, get the hell out of here. You guys aren't welcome here. And the gift is a message from the World Machine to Krakoa itself. And we learned that basically when the Celestials arrived on Earth all those years ago
Yeah.
and created the Eternals and the Deviants, when they built the World Machine, they based it on an island that they had already seen that was there.
Mm.
And so, in a way, the World Machine is actually based on Okara, the combination of the
Of
two.
Krakoa and
Yeah,
Araka,
the
or
original.
yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that is I like kind of like that. Like
Yeah.
that's kind of cool, right? There's
Yeah.
something there. Like it's just Gillen continuing to like explore the parallels to Krakoa and the Eternals. The
Yeah.
Eternals have the World Machine, which brings them back constantly, and Krakoa has, of course, the Resurrection Protocol. Like it's just all there, and
Yeah.
it's all there now that we see it. But like I hadn't really thought about it until Gillen put it in front of us.
Right.
Like honestly, I just really, really enjoyed this issue. Like there's like some really great imagery of like Icarus, for example, and like sort of like a Superman kind of moment for him where he's right at the end, kind of plain clothes. He's shaved his head. He has like a hoodie on and he's just in space looking down on the earth.
Hmm.
And it's like, it's just kind of cool. Like, I'm like, that's neat. And it just says end. Like, we're done for now. But I really
Yeah.
would like to see this new chapter for the Eternals. I don't know if we're gonna get that anytime soon. Just like
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
like not that they're just getting interesting because it's been interesting, but I think for a lot of people, where he left some of the main Eternals is a lot more approachable.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
they have this like great shame that now they're trying to deal with, and they're interacting with humanity more than ever before.
Hmm.
And it kind of puts them in the place, like he'd already drawn that parallel, but of like mutants when they first arrived on the scene. Hated
Yeah.
by humanity and just trying to do right and make amends. Now, a little different because mutants weren't trying to make amends. They're just like, we're just like you. Come on, give us a break. These
Yeah.
guys are like, hey, you're totally right to hate us, but like you got to give us a chance to make up for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So like I'm like, I want it, but I don't think we're gonna get it.
No, I think that the only reason why the Eternals was allowed to be a book was because it led to the Axe event, and
I
now that it
don't
is over, it's like that's kind of it.
maybe because I think when in that interview, I think Gillen mentioned that like he had been writing the Eternals, and I think part of that was the fact that the movie was coming out, so they wanted a book
A
out
book.
there, and obviously he knew that there's the stigma that like it's hard for people to get into the Eternals, that there is no like really good approachable run, and so he was trying
Mhm.
to make one that could be like that. Now, I would argue that Gaiman is the way to get in, but he mentions Kirby, and I'm like, I don't know if Kirby's the entry point for a lot of people into the Eternals.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah, I
know if
think it's a
that's
great bedrock for
yeah.
creators, but not for readers, but maybe. I mean,
Um,
if you love that New Gods crap, you might like the Eternals.
yeah, no, for sure. But you know, he mentions in that he'd been working on it, and like I said, he originally had pitched it as like a smaller little mini event going on with like Immortal X-Men, that
Yeah.
book and Eternals.
Right, right. It was originally not supposed to be a major event, and then
Yeah, and then
run
like
into that.
I think Freeport asked him like, "Hey, you got any ideas for an event?" And he was like, "Well, I have this." So they ran with it.
Good enough.
So it meant that he also mentioned that he had to sacrifice a whole bunch of like ideas he had for Immortal X-Men that he's like that we'll never see now because they
Yeah.
can't be worked in the same way. But that's what I think is the sign of a pretty solid writer, is that he was being flexible. You
Yeah.
know, he had like this plan, and instead of just trying to brute force these other ideas to make them work, since he was like, no, I'm already doing this, I'm gonna have my cake and eat it too. He's like, I'm gonna have to make those go away for now to make this larger thing work. And I think
Right,
it was super
right.
successful. I mean, I think this is like almost like an instant classic for me. Like I think about it often. I think about the journey that we went on. I think about the deeper meaning behind it often. So
Yeah.
yeah, if you slept on it, guys, when it comes out, I'm telling you, you got to grab it. I think it's totally worth it.
Nice. Really quick, I guess I'll talk about Spider-Man books. I'm
Sure.
just gonna do like them kind of like rapid fire because I don't want to like dwell on them because spoilers, I wasn't the hugest fan of them. But Amazing Spider-Man number 13 from Zeb Wells and John Romita Jr. Came out. This was the continuation of the like big fight between two hobgoblins and Spider-Man. If you thought like, oh man, what the hell, like Spider-Man like basically pooped his pants and cried when he was fighting the Vulture, but now he's fighting two hobgoblins. How is he having like an easier time? Don't worry, this is the issue where he poops his pants and cries and talks
Oh,
about how
good.
hard it is. And he's like, but he is a little more funny in this one while he's about to die, where he's like, I'm going to die now. And of course, because of what Peter Parker did, the big, like, looming Damocles sword of like what happened in the past, it's going to establish why we're in this current status quo.
Hmm.
He is alone. He has no support, no backup, no friends. And so Norman Osborn has to dust off, or rather shine up, the Golden Goblin outfit that is setting up to, I think, next week's or this week's Golden Goblin miniseries from Christopher Cantwell. That that is like a road to redemption for Norman Osborn, even though, of course, it's actually a road to damnation because Norman Osborn can't help himself, and he can't wipe his sins away just because he was shot by a
A
a magical sin killing shotgun.
Right. As you do.
Yeah, but it was a fun fight, I suppose, although both parties, both Ned Leeds and Roger Kingsley, are being manipulated. Roger Kingsley suggests that he's manipulating Ned Leeds, but it turns out that Kingsley is also being manipulated as well, and that there was another goblin manipulating these hobgoblins into... yeah, that's it. And
Okay.
and the reveal of the goblin that is manipulating them is disappointing. I think I would be disappointed more if it was Norman secretly doing it, but having the Goblin Queen, or the Queen Goblin in the form of Ashley Kafka, being a master planner that's looking to punish Norman Osborn for his sins, despite the fact that I don't think she's ever really shared a page with that character in her entire existence, makes me kind of go, why? But that's
Because
what
goblins.
reading. Yeah, because goblins. That's what reading Spider-Man has become at this point.
Hmm.
On the other side,
Mhm.
at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, for you, no shade thrown at. I was making a Jay Leno Conan O'Brien reference, but then I remembered that apparently Jay Leno was actually unfortunately caught in a garage fire and burned horribly. And
Yeah.
so I do apologize for, this has been a metaphor I've been using forever, but just so happens to coincide with the tragedy of Jay Leno's, affliction. And I do wish him a speedy recovery. But we have this other book that comes out at the exact same time as Zebwell's Spider-Man book called Spider-Man, written by Dan Slott with art by Mark Bagley. This is more Spider-Verse stuff, which, was always billed as that. And Dan Slott is the progenitor of the Spider-Verse. I mean, really, the guy from Spider-Man, the animated series, is the progenitor of the Spider-Verse because he created a whole, at least 2-part episode, the end of that cartoon's run, where all the Spider people get together and they all have to fight bad guys. And, it's really self-contained. It's actually, it's a fun idea in theory more than practice, but in any case, more Spider-Verse stuff, teasing the final Spider-Verse event. I sincerely doubt that's ever going to happen. But Shathra is the main antagonist in it. She's so powerful and so scary that she is she's got Morlun working with the spiders. What a twist.
Oh no.
If you read all the stories that introduce these characters, by the way, like Straczynski introduced Shathra, Morlun, the spider, the web of life and death, all that crap, you would know that she's part of the few threats from the Ezekiel arc, and that Shathra, while interesting and fun, was actually a prelude to Morlun. So, she's not stronger or more powerful than Morlun, but in this she is, because they want her to be, because everyone knew that Morlun was overdone, let's say. But yeah, so this is just, if you claim to like Spider-Man so much that you want every page to have only Spider-Man in those scenes, then congratulations, this is the book for you. Because all the Spider people are in this, and some of them are working with him, and some of them are transformed into spider wasps that work for Shathra. And I guess on paper, I like the idea of the spider wasp thing that Shathra is, moving into where the web of life used to be and building her own nest in the former web of life cocoon. The way bugs do, where they move into another location. They move into something else's home and then create their own place. But that's fine. It's all fine. But there was a sequence in which Silk shoots Spider-Man, our Spider-Man. There's 2 scenes that I'm sure hardcore Spider-Man fans are going to love.
Okay.
There's one in which, I say that, of course, sarcastically. There's a sequence in which Spider-Man's costume is torn, and he needs to charge into battle, and he doesn't have his costume anymore. It's all ripped up. So thankfully, Silk has magical clothes repairing powers where she shoots him with her webs, and his clothes are transformed into his original costume, so that he can wear the original costume for the remainder of this event, despite the fact that he's wearing a new costume that's going to be his new costume until at least Free Comic Book Day next year.
Okay.
Because on the cover of the upcoming Free Comic Book Day Spider-Man issue, he's still wearing that Goblin costume.
They already have that out?
They have it solicited, yeah.
I guess
so we know that's
sense.
Coming up.
Yeah.
But at least in this event, he'll have his original threads. But I didn't know Silk could do that. And I saw people arguing about it on the internet because Silk originally made her costume out of webs. But if you remember, when she was first invented, her costume just was webs. She just shoots herself with webs.
Yeah.
It's not a costume. She's just covered in webs.
It's not quite the same thing.
It's not exactly the same thing.
It'd be one thing if she shot herself with webs and then that turned into fabric.
Right, which is exactly what happens in this book.
And I guess they're but silk, insect silk, which isn't spider silk, but worm-based silk is created and turned into, I don't know. I see where they're trying to make that leap in logic, but it is in fact a leap.
Yeah. It's and it's so silly. It's so but it's for me, these kind of shorthand blah blah blahs are very emblematic of the overall problem, where it's I can't, it's there are some people who really like the episode of the Batman animated series, I've Got a Batman in My Basement. And as a kid, I enjoyed it because I was a kid. I was like, either their age or younger. And the idea of like projecting yourself into a situation where Batman is incapacitated by the Penguin and you have him in your basement and you're protecting him from the Penguin is like a cute kind of like fantasy for children. But if you look at it objectively, like it's a disappointing episode when you have it compared to like The Laughing Fish or Leather Wings or, 8 Feet of Clay or anything like that. But you have The Laughing Fish and The Feet of Clay and Two-Face and On Leather Wings and all these other, and Heart of Ice and every episode of the animated series to like set against it to go, oh, like I'm going to give this episode a pass, if not more allowances, because of the good faith that the show has earned from me. Scenes like Silk shooting magical costume changing webs onto Spider-Man is just another indication that like we're really in for it in this series. That it's going to be, it's just, you don't even give a crap about them wearing costume. Like you don't even care about this one silly element. And so for me, it like represents all this nonsense that's going to be happening in this book. And so like, I'm out. Like I'm out of this book.
I guess it also indicates that her webbing doesn't disintegrate.
It should. No, it does.
Which then strikes up a whole nother series of issues with,
yeah.
That's the joke where it's like, if the webbing didn't disintegrate, then it would be everywhere.
Yeah. No,
wherever you use it would just be there forever. If
you
webbed any person, then like you would, I don't know.
No, her webbing absolutely dissolves. Like when she was first invented, her costume that she wore as Silk would like melt off of her. But when she was first invented, she was a couple of steps above a sex object. But yeah, I'm off this book. I might read it, but I won't be talking about it anymore. I don't want people to be like think that I just like use this as an opportunity to complain about Spider-Man. I do it because I'm a glutton for punishment. And I'm just like, oh man, like this will be fun.
It kind of sounds like if you're a huge fan of that,
if you like Spider-Verse,
storyline, you're
gonna like this.
And like that's for you. But if you didn't, then maybe this isn't the book for you.
No, it's true. But yeah, so I read those Spider-Man books, and I should have just read Wildcats instead, like if I had my time. But yeah,
there's always next time.
That's true, and I will. I'm going to read it soon. But yeah, and we're clear on the books that you've read this week, unless there's another one.
Nope, we're good for that. I kept it short just on purpose. I figured, because I knew there's one more book we had to talk about.
There's one more book before we get into Black Panther.
That's why I was like, wait, no, we can't talk about any more books except
just
in case.
Yeah, just in case, because Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths penultimate issue debuted, written by Joshua Williamson with art by Daniel Sampere. I need to point out a couple of really, really strong positives. Number one, I really like this cover. Number two, the fact that Williamson and Sampere have had this book come out consistently, on time, and no dip in quality is a feat and should be celebrated. Congratulations on that achievement. And that is all. So, Dark Crisis Infinite Earths number 6. We're one issue away from the finale, the grand finale of this event, which Jeff Johns spoiled and rendered irrelevant in his own coinciding event, Flashpoint Beyond. So we know how much reverence DC has for what this is. But let's try and pretend like this event is setting up something in the future. This in particular has a couple of the hallmarks that I remember you were not a fan of in the previous issue. Because, of course, as you pointed out famously in our shows, when we discuss Dark Crisis, that the first 2, maybe 3 issues of a 7-issue miniseries were mostly fight scenes and wheel spinning, and could have been dedicated to plot development or at least key moments that set up what's going to be paid off in the following issues. In this particular issue, a rather important plot element in this story is just that happened. Don't worry about that anymore, because as we talked about, the main antagonist of this book, maybe even the protagonist of this book, was Pariah.
Supposedly.
Pariah was the driving force for this.
He's the guy. He's the guy.
Well, he's the guy. He was at least the avatar of the Great Darkness.
Yep.
And we had two, not really events, but miniseries certainly, from Infinite Frontier to Justice League Incarnate, which set up that the Great Darkness is like behind everything, behind Final Crisis, behind Cosmic Odyssey, every crisis before and since. That this is the big bad of the new DCU, and it shows, or at least it shows, to manipulate Pariah into being its kind of like emissary.
Yeah.
And Pariah believes that he can control the Great Darkness and that he can manipulate it into, I guess, respawning the multiverse, infinite multiverse, so that he can have a world where his family's back to life.
Like everybody gets something out of this one, apparently.
And all it took was like forcing a crisis to take place on Earth Prime or Earth Zero, and removing the Justice League, so the Justice League will use their energies to help to kickstart the birth of the multiverse. I think it's because, like, for a variety of reasons that we don't really get too specific into, but my assumption would be because they're all at the epicenter of every crisis anyway. So it's like, if I use them, then they will help me create this.
I am legitimately glad that we do talk about this book, because I'm not 100% certain what's happening. I'm not sure what anyone's motivation is at this point.
Yeah.
Well,
I think we know what I think we know what Pariah's motivation is. He wants to restart the multiverse. The infinite multiverse, not the 52 multiverse.
Right.
And theoretically, it's because he wants his family back, even though he didn't care about them before he lost them. And he doesn't seem terribly fixated on having them back in any point when we focus on him in the story, because it only really comes up once in a while, and we don't get any kind of like flashbacks, flash forwards, conversations about it. Like, he never really has anybody to talk to about it.
Right.
And
he's got himself, which he likes doing. He likes just shouting into the ether.
He does like to monologue. So we have that, and he certainly, he certainly focuses on that. But he also believes that he can like manipulate the Great Darkness into doing what he wants, because the Great Darkness doesn't like care or have like stakes or play favorites. It just exists, and it wants like everything to be quiet. Also, I guess it granted Pariah the ability to command the Dark Army, which gave him essentially absolute power, because he's able to control the Devil and Necron.
A dark side,
and like the infinite dark side, like all dark sides, all into one character. And
he's OP.
He's OP. He's completely OP. And thankfully, all he wants to do is sit on like a rock and wring his hands and fawn over his great machine, which allows him to harness the dark energies that run the Dark Army and manipulate Deathstroke into forcing the crisis to take place on Earth.
Yeah.
And Deathstroke.
I really thought we were leading up to Deathstroke being like, I'm killing all these people not to help start the crisis, but in order to stop it, because I'm secretly a hero.
Yes.
Apparently not.
No. He's secretly something.
Oh, he's secretly something.
So we find out through a tie-in, which I did read, but not until after I read this.
And I said I was going to try to read this if I were I'm not reading the tie-ins to this one. This one I was like, let me just try reading it without tie-ins just to see how it goes. I would say not well. Not well,
but also the tie-ins themselves aren't terribly important, because having read it, like, at least the issue that they reference in this, it's not really the crux of the issue. It's more like that also happens at the end of it.
Okay.
Like, literally in Dark Crisis, The Deadly Green, it's really a Justice League Dark book about what those characters are doing during the Dark Crisis. And then at the end, they find out that the Great Darkness is not involved in this at all. There is no Great Darkness involved.
Yeah, that line is just dropped in there, but then like almost immediately, it like nothing supports what was said.
And it doesn't really matter. Like, we don't know. Like, what we know is that apparently Pariah's own power made him go insane. And he, I guess, through his insanity and ingenuity, invented a machine that allowed him to harness power like unto the Great Darkness, but actually the Great Darkness has nothing to do with it.
Right. He like made his own darkness. It's like it's a metaphor for loss
Yes.
and grieving.
Right.
Or something.
So that happened. So the Great Darkness was the big bad. It's like the Emperor to, the original trilogy's Vader.
Yeah.
Right?
I would really rather never have us equate Vader to Pariah ever again. I'm very uncomfortable with that analogy because one character I really like and one character I wish never existed.
Yeah.
I'll leave you guys to figure out which is which.
Right, exactly. It turns out Pariah's been the main villain the whole time. There is no Great Darkness. It's not involved.
Yeah.
It's been Pariah the whole time. So then we wonder, like, oh man, like, what does that do? How does that change the stakes? You know what I mean? Because like, basically, they are theoretically engineering a crisis, but for no one except Pariah, because it still worked.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, like, Yara Flor is like, I'm going to make Pariah see the truth, but I need to get at him. So we need to buy time.
Because of the one line that says like, oh yeah, no, it's not
the Great Darkness. It's Pariah the whole time.
Yeah, so she's like, cool, then I'm going to do this.
Right. But Pariah unleashes the Dark Army, which is admittedly an awesome idea but
the Dark Army's been there. They've been fighting. And then like, now we need to release more of it because we already did that.
Right. Or maybe focus it because they've been kind of spread out,
Sure.
Like Pariah.
Maybe like the heavy hitters hadn't been there.
Well, I think that also the Dark Army wasn't on Earth during this time because they were, I guess, working with Pariah, or Pariah was saving them for a rainy day because Deathstroke had his own army, but then he got chained up and pulled into the Dark Army as well. So no, you're right. Yeah. The Dark Army has been here and being used throughout. But suddenly, now, Pariah's like, I need my Dark Army to focus right there on these guys specifically.
Yeah, because they've got my machine.
Because they have my machine, which they took earlier.
Yeah, he basically is just like, he's like, my machine? Dark Army, stop them. They're like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, because I think Black Adam steals it or whatever, but like,
Black Adam and Mr. Terrific have it.
Right.
And then because was it Jace shows up?
Yes. Jace shows up in
he rides in on a motorcycle and they're like, hey, you want to know how he showed up? Like,
yeah.
You know what's funny? Like, that was a moment though where I was like, that is so an actual moment from like a DC event or a crisis where like a character shows up and they're like, hey, go read it over there, which is totally fine. But part of me is like, I have no question as to why he showed up.
Yeah. And I did read it, by the way, and I don't know.
And the reason I don't is because I'm like, no, this is DC. Like, eventually, like, all the heroes are compelled to like, go against what they said earlier in the book where they're like, no, I'm not going to come and join you. I've got my own shit to worry about. Wait, no, now's the moment.
Yes.
Where I have to show up in a flashy way.
Right. Well, because also Jace like paid attention to Lucius a lot. And so he's a genius now. I'm like, you have plenty of geniuses that can help with
the whole Fox family.
Yeah. But the Fox family all, like, by osmosis, made Jace a super genius, and so he's able to be relevant and important in this event. Anyway, the point is, we're setting up this whole Dark Army fight so that John can step in and fight the Dark Army on his own while Yara Flor steps in and does her thing. And again, like, this is the kind of thing where, like, if you remember when they teased the Dark Crisis, like, before the death of the Justice League, people were, like, pissing their pants and foaming at the mouth of the idea that the Justice League will be replaced in a 5G-esque fashion, which didn't happen, but they weren't replaced by anybody. Then then the new team sucked, and the team that should have replaced them in the first place show up, and now they're here, and they are like piece by piece being important. Like John fights the Dark Army. That's the Superman. Then Batman shows up and helps Mr. Terrific. That's the Batman part. And then the Wonder Woman part needs to grab Pariah. So we got the trinity of the new generation of heroes doing their thing. But it's like not terribly set up. And it just kind of comes out of nowhere because we didn't get rid of all the other players who would ascend where they should have. You know what I mean? So anyway, we got a big fight between John fighting everybody. And I would have loved, there is a kind of fun sequence where John fights Doomsday, which I was like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And Sam Pear does a great job. In fact, it's even like kind of punctuated by seeing John kind of like, I don't know, fighting for the people that he loves, his mom and his dad, and like
Yeah, he has like these flashbacks to when he was a boy, almost as though he's like, no, Josh just like, no, these things happened. I know he's already aged up, but look, it happened.
But look, remember when he was a boy and everyone liked him more? So, you know, they fix the machine and they set it up so that it will like make Pariah go away because that's what the machine does now.
Yeah.
And so they hit Pariah with the machine, and then he gets crisised.
Yep.
Like he did to the original Justice League.
Yeah.
And that's the end of Pariah. So, like, the book's over.
And I gotta tell you, like, how unsatisfying that was for me. I was like, oh, good. No, he gets what he wants. Cool.
Well, does he? I mean, like, I guess he goes to his... If he's crisised the way that the original Justice League were, then he... basically gets sent to an Elseworld where he gets everything he wants, like the rest of them.
Yeah.
So,
and he's not going to question, and he's just going to be like, dope.
I guarantee he will, because he's going to screw it up. Like, that's the whole thing. Like, that's a good setup for Pariah, because you didn't kill him. You just put him in a place where he will absolutely not appreciate what he has and eventually feels unsatisfied and escape.
Right. Well, at least,
so, like, all right.
At least he's not here anymore.
But now you've established that Pariah was... It turns out Pariah was the main villain the whole time. Okay.
Right.
So there is no Great Darkness, but you were setting up the Great Darkness was a really big, interesting thing, but that's out. So there's no Great Darkness to worry about, and Pariah's gone. So what do you have left? You got the Dark Army, which really, like, shouldn't be wielded by Pariah anymore. They should be, like, freaking out. You know what I mean? Like, or go away. But they don't. And then the Justice League shows up in a big triumphant way, which is kind of fun. And you get John fighting Doomsday and just being like wrecked. And I don't know, the scene of John like being proud of himself for having bought them time doesn't really hit me the way I know it should, because I don't care about the time that was bought. And all Yara needed to do was just wrap Pariah in a rope for a minute. And even then, like, he doesn't really learn anything. Like, he gets wrapped up in it, and then he just says that she's a liar, and then they hit him with a magic ray gun, and he goes away.
Additionally, I feel like, so like John steps up, right? And like for some reason, all of the portion of the Dark Army that was going to stop the machine just focus on him. And I'm like, there's no way they wouldn't just try to keep going. Like they were commanded to do something.
Yeah,
wouldn't they just go for the machine?
I mean, you have like Ares and Darkseid and like, I don't know, everyone. One of them would sneak off and do something, but no. And then, but we still want it to be Doomsday. So then, like, they do eventually. I guess, like, maybe they're discombobulated by the death of Pariah or the crisising of Pariah. But so
no, they're
John
all just fighting. Like they're like, no, we're gonna kill this kid, and then we'll stop the machine.
But then they go away because John has to fight Doomsday on his own, and Superman steps in and saves John, and then the two of them fight Doomsday together, which admittedly is a cool idea. But again, I'm like, I don't even know at this point. This isn't Josh's fault. This is actually just the fault of continuity and Doomsday, where I'm like, I don't even know what Doomsday this is at this point. Like, you know, Doomsday was retconned like 6 ways from Sunday. And so I have no idea like what I'm even looking at, you know?
Right.
But it's a cool image. Just like John fighting Cyborg Superman was a great idea and a cool image, but like, you know, it happened, I guess. And so Superman punched Doomsday, and then the Justice League and all the Green Lantern Corps show up,
Yep.
and they like fight the Dark Army. Um, you know, much to the sadness of the loss of Oliver, but of course there's no way. And and then we end this issue like the end of Arkham or Asylum, where Deathstroke is like, I'm the bad guy of the issue now. That for me, I was like, oh, like that was the biggest, like heaviest I've ever had in recent years at an event where I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, it's
Yeah.
Deathstroke
The
now.
corrupted darkness has him.
Right. The darkness that was not really the great darkness, but was actually just Pariah's insanity that led him to building the machine. What?
Mm.
And it's just but to trade villains in the final act. I appreciate that at the very least, like Deathstroke was like manipulated and used the whole time. And then finally he like rises up. But like screw Pariah. Why should he get an Elseworld when Deathstroke could have killed Pariah?
Right.
And then been like, now it's me. I think that would have been more well earned than just having Pariah be defeated by his own machine through the ingenuity of two smart people. Have the Dark Army be confused and distracted for a second, and then have Deathstroke show up and he and he's like, yeah, now I'm the big bad guy. And I'm like, they just beat Doomsday over there. Like, who cares, man?
Yeah.
Like, who cares about Deathstroke? Especially if he looks nothing like Deathstroke. It's like, he just looks like the Joker at the end of Arkham Asylum.
No, he definitely does. And I love that they had like, they're like, oh, we got to bring it back around to Nightwing. And I'm like, Nightwing was not in this book.
Nope, but
I mean,
he
he has like
by
a brief
Deathstroke really quick.
He's got a brief conversation.
Yes.
In it, and they're like, oh yeah, don't forget, he's kind of the through line, maybe.
Right.
I don't
like,
know.
But he won't be because he is now a damsel at the end of this issue, so he needs to be rescued.
Or not.
But I don't have to worry about that because literally every DC superhero on the Earth and in space is here right now. Like, oh no, Deathstroke. Like, if this had taken place like in another place, you know, like if the whole Titans legacy thing took place on like in the basement of Titans Tower, while everything else happening up here, like the real thing, you know, it's like the big flashy fight with Aragorn and Sauron's minions, but Frodo over there in the volcanoes where it's really happening, you know, like, oh, Deathstroke is gonna fight like the true heart of the DC universe in the form of Nightwing and the Titans for the soul of the DC universe in like the basement of Titan's Tower, while everybody else is just going to fight the Dark Army, you know? But no, they I guess beat the Dark Army. How the hell do they beat Necron? Like, you know what I mean? They do have the core, but like, I don't know. You know what I mean? It's just like a lot of things happen in this, but yet it doesn't really satisfyingly happen. You know, it's just kind of like,
it's true. And you know, I don't know. I don't know enough about Deathstroke to say that these motivations don't line up for him as a character.
yeah,
But they don't feel like they necessarily line up for him as a character.
Right. No.
Isn't he a mercenary?
Yes. It's, I mean, like he does have it is personal for him to beat the Titan, but like just the Titans though. I mean, I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah. No, that is what it is. It's weird. It seems like Nightwing's also, I don't know, it looks like the darkness, the corrupted darkness is like swirling around him. I'm like, oh, maybe we're gonna do something with that. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be.
I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, and we know that like at the end it says everyone versus Deathstroke. So like it's everyone's gonna fight Deathstroke. And he is pretty powerful. I don't know. It's just like, yeah, I don't know.
This is just not necessarily like, I didn't have any idea where this event was going, but now that we're here, I don't know if I don't know. I think I have to go back and relook at it to see. I'm like, does this I
Why
just
not?
didn't see this coming at all.
No, I didn't see it coming either, but
And
not in
not
a
in
like
like,
not in a
and I
good
don't know
way.
if that's a good way, because I do like when things are like, "Ooh, I didn't see that coming." This just kind
Mhm.
of feels like, "Oh, okay."
It's an O. Like that's this issue ended with like, "Oh,
Yeah.
that's it."
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, so this was not, I don't know. This feels less decompressed than the
Right.
beginning did, but it just makes me feel like the pacing has throughout has been off, since I know we're supposed to be accelerating and this is supposed to have like a lot of action and stuff, but this just feels like we could have used a little more time from some of the earlier issues to kind of expand upon a couple of things.
Yes, absolutely. I think that I mean I'm feeling the lack of support from DC editorial on this one. Where
Mm.
like, I think that if it was part of like a big status quo change or a big setup for the new period in DC or something, like I think that it might have some more weight kind of surrounding it, and also maybe it might have had more focus.
Mhm. Mhm.
Instead, it's just kind of like, here is a thing.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree.
Uh, I I was on board up until Deathstroke became the new villain of the book.
All right. That's
It just okay.
I'm just glad, I'm glad Pariah's gone. I don't know how I feel about the way in which he exited the book.
Right. Well, that's only because of your own bias against the character.
Well, I'd also say just because it seems out of left field that like he doesn't make it to the end of this book.
I agree. What it feels like is they were like, I don't know. It feels like they want you to think that this was really where it was all leading up to. I mean, in Crisis on Infinite Earths, the Anti-Monitor
Mhm.
is the main bad guy, but I don't. It's weird. It's weird, and I like now. I need to read issue 7 to like
Oh yeah.
really get what this is gonna be.
Yeah, it's not
I,
like you're gonna stop now.
yeah,
We're
I
almost
wish.
there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I wish that I don't know. I wish I knew where this was heading, or at the
Mm,
very least get like an idea that DC was all in. Like it's a bold claim to do a direct sequel to Crisis on Infinite Earths,
yes.
and thinking about like the effort that went into Crisis and the like new status quo of the DC universe and like how hardcore they were about like what happened, what didn't happen, where the universe is going, what we're doing with these characters, all the setup and reboots and stuff like that took place.
Mhm.
There's a lot around it, and even when you were reading it, you felt that it like things will never be the same or things are going to change.
Right.
And I don't know what else this is besides like a reaffirmation. And it could just be a reaffirmation of like what DC's all about, who these characters are, and what the universe, means to the world at large.
Right.
Yeah.
I I do not have a lot of insights in on this book, honestly. I'm just kind of reading it, and I do feel badly about that. I
Yeah.
think I'll have more so, something more meaningful to say after issue 7,
Yep.
but much as all of us will, because we'll have seen the journey through till its end and have a better idea of what the point of it was.
Oh yeah. No, and I think that there's like that DC Dawn book that has Nightwing on the cover. When I read that in the wake of issue 7, then I'm like, okay. Like
Mhm.
now I have a clear picture of what this all is. But yeah, I mean, like I think just you gotta be in a position where you're like, don't do a crisis unless you're gonna change everything.
That's what I'm saying. That's it. That's literally my whole thing. Like,
Yeah.
and I again, like I said, like if you're not going to actually change everything, don't call it that. But obviously, now is not, in my opinion, the time to start changing everything again. I think people are just a little tired of it,
Yeah.
of not, we talked about this all at the beginning. And so it's just it's such a weird kind of quagmire.
Yes. Yes, it is, and it is. I think that I would need to know how it sells to call it a
Mm,
quagmire, but like because it could be that it sold great, and
maybe
I hope it did
you know I
because
because
it,
Josh is a passionate guy, and I think he's excited for this book, and I sometimes when people are very excited for something, they're not always thinking from the perspective of anyone else who's looking in on it.
well, and that's where editors come in, and like if it's because like infamously, death metal was not supposed to end the way it did, and it was
Mm,
changed by a motivation of sales
mhm.
and editorial, and I don't know if it's better or worse. I don't know if the original ending of death metal would have satisfied me more, but clearly the people who were involved were like really they at least had a vested interest in the direction of where it was going
Yeah.
because they ingratiated themselves into it. I wonder if anyone had anything to do with this outside of Josh just being like, "Here we go," you
Yeah.
know.
No, it's
Um,
yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's yeah. I'm not actually even disappointed by anything that happens in the issue outside of like the end, outside of like plot stuff. Like all the character stuff is cool and fun. It's just like, oh, you traded, you just get Pariah out of here and just hand wave the entire motivator for Pariah as oh no, he was crazy. Don't worry about it.
Which if we had revealed that throughout the book, throughout the main story, and it led up to issue 7,
Right.
there's something there.
Right.
Like
Can you
that's
imagine like a subplot in this book where like Detective Chimp and the Question
yep.
are like traversing the multiverse or the dark multiverse. Let's throw that in there. And they're
Mhm.
looking for like a backdoor into like Pariah's power.
Mhm.
And they get to like the space where the great darkness and they swing open the door and he's not there.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh."
Right.
Like he's just a nut job, you know?
Or I mean, like, not like it's funny because Josh specifically stayed away from what is often called the fourth pillar of the DC universe. Like, she's not in this at
No.
all, right? Like, there's no Harley in this.
No,
But
but
like,
Punchline did get punched in the face.
well, yeah, but I was
That's
gonna
what
say, like, if they were like, if DC at any point was like, put her in this book, that's an interesting moment for her to be like hearing him talking about the great darkness and being like, just using those skills that she has, being like,
Oh, yeah.
he's talking to himself.
Right. That'd be really cool.
Like, that's all just
Yeah.
grief.
Right. Right. You have been ignored and neglected and trodden on your entire like for the at least the last like 30 years of real time.
Mhm.
You're nuts. Yeah. I don't even really mind that Pariah is full of shit, but we just set up all the great darkness stuff, but we built all this stuff up. I don't know. It's weird.
That
But
just I don't know, there's something there where that would have been the point of it all.
yeah.
I don't know. I think there's something I don't know if we have, like, the time or the mental capacity right now to unpack that, but I feel like there's something more meaningful there
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
using that as, like, the, like, ta-da at the end.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what the actual ta-da is.
Right. Yeah, no, it's not over. We're talking like it's over and it's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, man, let's read some super chats and then we'll
Yeah,
move
there's a
on.
really great one that just came in right at the like, at the end, and that really made me smile.
Yeah, yeah, me too. Uh let's see here. Uh Here we go. Josh Cowdrey says, "Please keep doing Wake Up. Need it for my AM drive." Well, new episode comes out tomorrow morning, so
That's
keep an eye
right.
out or an ear out. David Pledger, loving the morning show you've been doing, Sal. Does the Nightcrawler keep momentum when he bamfs? Do you think? I think if he were to be thrown and teleporting, then yes, I think so.
According to me, I think so, apparently, based on
Exactly.
our fastball special conversation.
hmm Zoinks, if you slap some clown makeup on Slade at the end of Dark Christ, he looks like the Joker in Arkham Asylum. Didn't know how I feel about this event. Yeah, man, me either. We'll see where it goes. I'm looking forward to the ending. Not just because I'm looking for it to be over. I'm looking forward to like seeing how it all wraps up.
Yeah.
Riv Wilson, before we finish the books, I'm grateful for Elseworlds Exchange for pointing me to Murder World starting soon. Wouldn't have caught it otherwise. That's true. Murder World does debut this week. So keep an eye out for that. We'll talk more about that in the recommendations section. Paul Williams, hi. Hope you're doing well. I'm going to go have to catch the VOD. Really strange question, though. I thought you covered Grayson/Spiral, but I couldn't find it again. Did I remember it wrong? You did. We've never done Grayson at all. We've talked about him, but we never did it. But we did get it. So keep an eye out for that maybe one day. B Black, my wife and I loved Black Panther. Riri was lovable and charismatic. Loved the uniqueness of Talocan versus Atlantis in DC. Namor was draconian, arrogant, and regal. The fight scenes were amazing, especially Okoye as the Queen and Shuri did a solid job. I'm glad you enjoyed it, man. We'll talk more about that in spoiler territory when we discuss the movie. But yeah, thank you very much for your opinion. Rami Darwish, the last couple of Dark Crisis issues feel a little rushed, but we will see what happens in the final issue. Really like the wake up show, by the way. Well, thank you very much, Rami. Appreciate it. And yeah, we're looking forward to seeing where that goes. Denial. So we all agree the Great Darkness is going to tease a later event after making it into the DC universe at the end, right? Maybe. I mean, certainly we can't. We have to acknowledge that it does exist. Like it is real. It's just that Pariah misunderstood it. Supreme Omega on Batman v Robin. I think I'm sick of Damian. He turned Batman into a tired soap opera. How many times are we going to have Damian's mommy and daddy issues? This is something that I could have told you when he debuted. Literally, I bought the issue. I bought it off the rack. I picked up the issue of Damian's debut. I was like, Grant Morrison on Batman. Here we go. F you. You've ruined it. That issue. Just saw where it was going. Denial. Pariah's never truly gone, Tiffany. He'll always be hiding behind a corner, threatening to invade the next book you enjoy.
Great. Thank you.
And Thorn Identity. I guess Pariah was just the friends we made along the way. I guess so.
That was it. Awesome.
Right?
I don't...
Good old Pariah. Should we talk about recommendations or should we do Black Panther?
I guess we should do recommendations. Might as well just finish out the comic book portion.
With comics. Why not? According to our list of recommendations, do you have the?
I do. I just pulled them up while you were talking.
Well, I have to recommend Nightwing number 98. Can't wait for this series to continue. It is a bold new direction for Nightwing, or at the very least, it's a new arc. So check it out. Batman Superman World's Finest number 9 is coming out. It's Joker. Neat. Sounds fun. She-Hulk number 8. I'm enjoying this book, so you should check that out as well. Batman One Bad Day, Mr. Freeze number 1. I believe that's Jerry Duggan's issue, so check that out. That looks fun.
I'm definitely going to check that out. I hope it's good.
Yeah, me too.
I really do.
Just in time for Dark Crisis, Worlds Without a Justice League, Batman number 1 finally comes out. You can get some context for why Batman looks at all like that. It is written by Simon Spurrier and Megan Fitzmartin. I think Megan Fitzmartin is doing the backup, but yeah, so worth checking out. Deceased War of the Undead Gods number 4. Whew, that title. But yeah, great series. I'm really enjoying it. You should check that out as well. I tweeted something a while back when Twitter was a thing. Gold Goblin number 1 is coming out, and I was so underwhelmed by this whole idea of like a redemption arc for Norman Osborn, the Golden Goblin name, the Rinsler-esque outfit, a mini series or even a one shot about Norman Osborn trying to be a hero. Like, I am not interested in the least about that. And I said something to that effect. I was just like, I feel nothing when I see this. And it turns out Christopher Cantwell's writing it, and he was like, well, I'm sorry you feel that way. And I was like, oh, thank you for reminding me that writers are real people. And so I'm going to give it a try because I do like Cantwell's work. So we'll see where it goes from there. But I will be reading that. Thunderbolts number 4 is coming out. I do find this book to be fun. It's it feels like, like Savage Avengers, where it's like, oh, look at this. A person who knows the characters and continuity doing a little book. Murder World Avengers number 1 comes out. This is how Murder World is going to be, by the way, where it's like Murder World Avengers, Murder World Spider-Man, Murder World X-Men. Like, it'll be that.
Like the Darkhold books?
Like the Darkhold books. But it is like a mini series that will be about like that will be going in a linear direction. So don't
Okay,
let
so not
Marvel's
like that,
terrible publishing ability fool you. It actually is a like linear story.
Nice.
So check that out if you have the scratch and you're
If you
interested.
dare.
If you dare to check out Murder World. And if you want to know more about why I'm even talking about Murder World, check out Jim Zub's appearance on Elseworlds from last week.
Nice.
Tiffany, what are you looking forward to seeing this week?
Immortal X-Men number 8, obviously, is coming
Yeah.
out. So I'm definitely going to be reading that. That's Kieran Gillen's book over there and at the X table. This one, it's funny because at the end of the Omega issue, they said to look for Immortal X-Men number 9 to learn more about the like ramifications of all of this. So they mentioned a few books, like Avengers Assemble Alpha number 1. I think it's Immortal X-Men. Yeah, number 9 and X-Men Red number 9. So like continue to see like, hey, what just happened? That's where you're going to see some ripples. So I was like, all right, so 8 is not where we're going to be seeing that, but I don't care. Still gonna buy it because I just like the way he writes.
Yeah.
Definitely dealing with some more with Mystique and Destiny. So, you know, I'm here for it. Yeah, we already mentioned Batman One Bad Day, Mr. Freeze, but
Yep.
yeah, I'm definitely going to be
Here's
grabbing
repeating.
that. Yeah, that's very much up my alley for sure. Along with that, I'm going to pick up probably I think I have to go back and read issue 2 of this, but the Bone Orchard Mythos 10,000 Black Feathers. It's the Bone Orchard Mythos is like the overarching, this is the series, right?
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of other mini stories, yeah, within it. So this is the
Right.
10,000 Black Feathers arc or story. So I'm going to grab that. Shang-Chi and the 10 Rings number 5. I freaking love this book. That's it. That's all I got for that one. Blade Vampire Nation number 1. I'm going to give it a shot.
Yep.
Blade's like the sheriff of vampires, so how long can that last? Let's find out together.
Yeah.
Demon Wars Shield of Justice is coming out. If you like Peach Momoko's work, these for some reason these always sneak up on you. Like, hey, we're putting out
the Demon Wars.
We're putting out a Peach Momoko book. Don't tell anybody. And I'm like, no, tell everybody.
Yeah.
Tell everybody. Oops. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of Peach Momoko's influence on her little, like, I don't know if it's another, I guess it's another world, another universe of Marvel. Really do like it quite a bit. So I'm definitely going to be checking that out. And I think that's it for me for right now without scrolling through this entirely huge long list. So don't at me when I miss something. It's just I know we want to get to talking about the movie.
Yes, it's true.
Sure.
So yeah, really quick, let's do some super chats and we'll get into Black Panther.
Absolutely.
The Titan Zero, thoughts on Jeff Johns' The New Golden Age? Didn't read it. Dante Cook, I recommend Riddler Year One to a coworker who loves all the superhero movies and wanted to get into comics. He loved it, wants to keep following it. I think I added to our comic loving ranks. Nice. That's I think the reason why they even made that book, besides also appeasing Paul Dano. But yeah, I'm excited to see.
No, it's like it's an interesting way to bring in the new reader. Like
oh, you like those movies? Well, the movie guy wrote one, so now maybe you'll read it.
Like, okay, and they might.
Yeah, right. Yeah, somehow. Supreme Omega also on Morrison. I feel they work better under a leash. I much prefer their JLA and Animal Man runs. I feel Morrison can get a little too self-indulgent. That is an understatement. So I tend to agree with you on that. John Ty, thoughts on the first issue of Wildcats by Matthew Rosenberg? I thought it was a fun first issue. Didn't read it yet, but it's on my list. So yeah. But yeah, if you haven't seen Black Panther yet, there will be spoilers. But we're going to start off with a quick like kind of summary. R. Jones, Kukulkan, El Nino, Sin Armor, Boy Without Love to Namor, No Love for the Surface was badass. Canon reason for his name, should retcon this in comics. We'll get into that in a minute, but thank you very much for your opinion. And yeah, we'll get into that in just a second. So here we go. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody. We'll see you guys on the follow-up.